Have you ever met someone who consistently refers to themselves in the third person? This is a common trait among people with narcissistic personality disorder. For the narcissist, it is a defense mechanism used to protect their fragile ego, image, and self-worth. By talking about themselves in the third person, they can distance themselves from their unwanted or shameful behaviors, image, memories, and emotions. This can serve several purposes. Some narcissists will talk about their past actions and even parts of their life in the third person to avoid shame and accountability. I remember meeting someone like this when I was a technical scuba diving instructor in Cayman Islands. From the first day of his training, he referred to himself in the third person, saying things like, "John thinks that's a great idea," or "John doesn't like that kind of fish." John once said John was weak and cried a lot when he was a child. He was a really pathetic person. I'm nothing like him. By talking about his past as if it was a different person, John attempted to distance himself from the shame he felt for how he was as a child. He once was rude to another guest, and when the guest called him out on it, he responded with, "John is sorry he hurt your feelings." John had distanced himself from his actions as well as his false apology. He did not even mention what he did to upset the person. Talking about himself in the third person and giving an apology like this allowed him to protect his fragile ego, as it was not him that upset the person, and it was not him giving an apology. When presented with consequences of their actions, many narcissists will disassociate from their behaviors and act as if it was a different person doing it, even if it was 10 seconds ago. By claiming it is a different person they think and feel, they should not and cannot be held responsible for those actions, as it was not them. They may even state, "But how can he still be mad at me? I'm a new person now," or "I have changed." They often shift the focus away from their actions to them supposedly having changed, as if them changing frees them from any responsibility. Many narcissists use self-aggrandizement to boost their ego, sense of power, and image by referring to their accomplishments, talents, or importance in the third person. By talking about themselves in the third person, the narcissist becomes a supporting character in their own mythical story. In their mind, it is not them beating their chest, but someone else who is supporting their claims of brilliance and specialness, even if it is themselves talking about themselves. This also allows them to brag while trying to appear not to do so. John used to say, "John is an amazing scuba diver. Everyone is always impressed by his skills and respect his opinions." Saying it in the third person allowed him to gain admiration and attention from others while avoiding the appearance of being too self-centered or arrogant. If he was more covert in his narcissism, he may not have been so open and may have said, "John doesn't like to brag, but he's been recognized to be an expert scuba diver." This may have made him appear humble while getting the attention he wanted. Narcissists hate to admit they made mistakes or have flaws, but when they do, some will turn it around to still boost their ego or gain sympathy and attention. As part of his training, John had to deploy a bag underwater to serve as a surface marker for topside support. The bag is attached to a reel, and you have to be careful not to get yourself entangled in the line, as well as make sure the reel runs freely. John did not properly free the clutch on his reel, which was operated with a thumb-controlled lever. The bag shot up and pulled him to the surface a foot or two before he let go of the reel. When we got to the surface, he commented, "John is so stupid, he cannot even properly disengage the reel's clutch, but damn, did you see how perfectly he filled the bag with air?" In one sentence, he managed to distance himself from a mistake that he made and then redirected the focus from his mistake to something else he did well. If he was more covert, I'm sure he would have tried to get sympathy. He may have said, "John is so useless, he can't do anything right." This would have been a hint for me to point out something he does well in an attempt to get validation and shift the focus away from his mistake. Note that in general, overt narcissists are more likely to use self-deprecating humor or false humility as a way to maintain their sense of superiority, while covert narcissists are more likely to engage in negative self-talk or present themselves as weak or helpless in order to gain sympathy or avoid scrutiny. Projection is a defense mechanism that narcissists use to project their flaws, mistakes, shortcomings, and what they hate about themselves onto others and then attack that person. This way they can, in a way, vent their shame or anger for those things in them while still maintaining their image of perfection. If they do it in the third person, they still distance themselves from their own actions, but also try to minimize their behaviors by including themselves in a group. So now they are part of a special group of people who does these actions instead of just the narcissist alone doing it. In a way, it helps them to justify their actions by claiming others do this as well. John did not do this as far as I can recall, but if he wanted to, he could have said, "You can't trust anyone these days. People like John are only out for themselves." By including the part people like would have allowed him to distance himself from any selfish behaviors he had or that were pointed out to him, while also claiming that other people did it as well. If he was more covert, he may have said, "It is so sad to see people like John who are so desperate for attention." Both statements would have allowed him to avoid taking responsibility for his behaviors or admit his flaws while still maintaining a sense of superiority and control. Ego and image is a massive deal for a narcissist. If there is a possibility of failure, then a narcissist may distance themselves from that possible future failure by talking about their goals or objectives in the third person. John did this in the beginning of the course by saying, "John is going to easily ace this course." By doing this, he created a mental separation between his current self and his future self he was describing. As he did pass, he was able to take credit for his achievements, which drastically bolstered his image. But had he failed, he could have protected his ego and image by claiming he never said he was going to ace the course, but that John did, and he is not that John, which would have allowed him to avoid feeling the full impact of failing the course. Before I learned more about narcissism, I used to wonder if these people think other people are stupid, and that they don't realize that the person is referring to themselves. As it turns out, a few actually do think people are stupid and won't realize it. However, narcissists often struggle with understanding other people's thoughts and perspective, which is known as theory of mind. The narcissist frequently assumes that other people see things the same way they do. Thus, if a narcissist in their mind disassociates themselves from their actions or part of their life and see themselves as a different person, they assume others do the same. Some narcissists also have a tendency towards magical thinking and believe that their thoughts and desires have a power to shape reality or directly influence people, external events, or circumstances. As a result, a narcissist could then believe that if they think of themselves in the third person, others will naturally think the same and distance the narcissist from their negative actions or mistakes. However, for some the shame and fear of abandonment is so great that even though they know others know they are referring to themselves, they cannot mentally associate with their actions or flaws and have to talk about themselves in the third person to protect their fragile ego and self-image. Referring to themselves in the third person is but one of many things a narcissist do, and a relationship with a narcissist is often a roller coaster of emotions. Learn more about narcissism by watching the video suggested to you right now.